So the UK's birth rate has plummeted to just 1.4, and that's the lowest since records began almost 90 years ago. So with fewer younger people supporting an already ageing population, retiring at age 65 is already a distant dream, and the new state pension could now need to be increased to age 71. So in this video, I'm going to explain how this population collapse will mean we're all going to be working longer and retiring later than planned. So welcome back to the Personal Finance crew, and if this is your first time to the channel, a very warm welcome. Hi, my name is Simon and I'm a chartered financial planner with over 30 years experience, and I know that money matters, so in this channel we're going to make money make sense. So the world has now tipped over the brink of a seismic population shift, and one that's going to define how we live, how we work, and importantly for this channel at least, how we're going to retire. And we can't escape the fact that birth rates are plummeting, populations are aging, and the economic costs are mounting. Now around the world, and particularly for the UK, the signs are particularly bleak. Now the birth rate currently stands at 1.4 in the UK, and that's the lowest rate since records began in 1938, and that is well below the replacement level of 2.1. Now this crisis has been called the birth gap, and this causes a ripple effect which is going to end up increasing our retirement age and place a profound strain on healthcare, the NHS, and of course the state pension. Now there is a groundbreaking documentary by someone called Stephan, and that has analysed this birth gap, but it also shows how a declining birth rates have already set off a chain reaction. And that is quite simply that the fewer children born today, the harder it becomes to sustain a growing population of pensioners tomorrow, and this imbalance is already straining economies around the world, and the UK is clearly no exception. So here's a list of the birth rates in the G7, which are the world's most advanced economies, and the UK birth rate, as you can see, has collapsed. That means that younger generations are going to be burdened with a broken economic system with little or even no way out. Now just to put that into a little bit of context, the UK birth rate of 1.4 means that for every 100 people now, there's going to be 70 children. And that's going to create 49 grandchildren and just 34 great-grandchildren. So what that means is potentially we can lose 64% of the population growth in just 3 generations. Now to expand on that yet further, in South Korea, they've got a birth rate of just 0.7. And that means for every 100 people, they're going to have 35 children, 12 grandchildren, and just 4 great-grandchildren. Let that sink in for a minute. Now, the International Longevity Centre projects that by 2040, there's going to be just 1 worker supporting each pensioner in many developed nations, and that's down from the current level of 3.5. So in the UK, this population time bomb is ticking louder than ever, but with a shorter fuse than ever. And with fewer people entering the workforce, the burden of funding the state pension, as well as the NHS, falls on the shoulders of a shrinking pool of taxpayers. Now, there are some very loud suggestions that our state pension needs to be increased to age 71 by 2040, and that's just in 15 years' time. So if you're around 50 years old now, and that is 90% of the channel, myself included, we could all be just out of luck. Now, of course, the idea of working to our 70s might sound reasonable in theory, but in reality, it paints a very different picture indeed. Now, studies reveal that half of the workers aged 70 are neither physically fit nor mentally fit to remain in employment. Now, this statistic is alarming considering that the UK government is already increasing our state pension age to age 68 by 2046, but that is highly likely that's going to be brought forward, leaving many older workers in a very precarious financial situation. Now, the spiralling cost of healthcare further complicates this picture, and that's because older workers often require more medical care, leading to more time off work, and that leads, of course, to lower productivity. So employers are going to face a dual challenge of accommodating an aging workforce whilst managing rising expenses and costs, and that, of course, includes the recent increase in employee national insurance contributions to 15%. Now, adding into the mix for this economic strain is the alarming rise in long-term sickness too. The UK currently has 2.8 million people classified as being long-term sick, And that's a figure that's expected to balloon to 4.3 million people by 2029. To make matters worse, 300,000 people are leaving the workforce annually due to sickness, and that increases job shortages and of course the cost of providing state benefits as well. Now you can see in this chart that before the pandemic, the long-term sickness in the UK was well below the long-term average. But as you can see, there's a spike from the first quarter in 2020, and that is now only just started to slow down. So if you're finding value in this video about how this population collapse may mean that we all get to retire later than planned, then please give a like and subscribe to the channel. And we are going to continue to build this community throughout 2025, and you are more than welcome to come along for the ride. Just don't forget to hit the notification bell as well so you don't miss any of this weekly content. Now, according to the McKinsey Global Institute, birth rates have fallen below the replacement levels in nearly every major economy. In fact, this report finds that 70% of humanity lives in countries with a birth rate lower than the replacement rate of 2.1. By 2100, populations around the globe will have fallen by 50%, and that economies are going to continue to contract over time, and they're going to remain much smaller for the long term. I mean, in short, there's not going to be enough people to fill all the jobs needed to maintain society. So, for example, there's going to be less demand for teachers, and the schools then will need to either gradually merge or just close down. So as you can see, population collapse isn't just a societal issue, it's an economic one too. And it's one that's going to threaten growth, innovation, as well as a government and a country's financial stability due to the unimaginable increase in costs. So what's this going to mean for all of our retirements? Well, higher life expectancy means longer retirements in theory. For our state pension, this means that more money needs to be paid to more people for a lot longer. Now, don't forget, the state pension is a benefit, and the eligibility criteria to receive this benefit is changing. Now, the current cost of providing the state pension is £125 billion a year, and this is expected to be closer to £300 billion a year in just 25 years. So with fewer workers paying tax and national insurance, and the cost of providing the state pension is ever increasing, there's only one way to combat that, and that's to increase the state pension age, meaning we're all going to have to pay in the system for longer. Now, the state pension is already under immense financial pressure, and the government is already at 100% debt to GDP for the first time since the 60s, so we are likely to be forced to work for longer and therefore have less time in retirement. Now, the state pension is already increasing to age 68, and it's likely to end up even higher than that. So this population collapse isn't just a distant problem, it's here now, and it's reshaping all our futures. So in the UK, retiring at age 71 may soon become the norm. But that doesn't mean you can't retire early if you've got enough funds. So I've linked another 2 videos in this series about how it's never too late to start saving for your retirement and what the tough road ahead looks like if you do decide you want to retire early. Thank you so much for watching to the very end, and for your time and for your patience as always, and I'm going to see you all again next week.